do? You have? No kidding. Well, just give me the address. Yes, of course. Oh, they'll be totally discreet. Thank you. We got one!
Well, now we're going to look today at ghosts, ancient ghosts, and ghost busting in the Middle East, in ancient Sumer. There's a title here, a tablet here that you can see they've had to actually etch on and show you the relief that's gone. Somebody finally looking through some of those ancient tablets discovered something new. And it appears to be the very first depiction of a ghost that we have in a modern day. Wasn't that modern though, was it? A lot of people believe ghosts come from a medieval time and ghasts and this idea of people who died incorrectly and come back, but I believe it goes back much, much earlier than this, and this is just the earliest depiction currently known. So let's get into this here as this priestess leads this ghost into the afterlife, into the light, like Carol Ann. 3,500-year-old Babylonian ghost image discovered in British Museum vaults. What is believed to be the world's oldest depiction of a ghost has recently been found in a Babylonian tablet, neglected in the vaults of British Museum in London since its acquisition in the early 19th century. Babylonia, which is a magnificent state in ancient Mesopotamia, covering parts of present-day Iraq and Syria, had two periods of great development. The first took place between 2300 BC and roughly 1712 BC and achieved its greatest heights under the Amorite ruler Hammurabi. The second period of Babylonian development occurred much later, between 626 and 539 BC. The 3,500-year-old Babylonian ghost image tablet belongs to the first or earliest period of development. Here we're looking at Professor Irving Finkle of the British Museum. I've done a few videos showing him, in fact one that showed that he deciphered the tablet showing the coracle, or round boat, that was Noah's Ark of the ancient Sumerian tale that led to our tale that we have in our Bible, which was a local flood. But they even built this giant boat and everything and tried to make him out as a Noah character in a few of the pictures and stuff. He's quite the character. How the British Museum's Dr. Finkle found the ghost image. Well, the Babylonian tablet etching is accompanied by writing in an ancient cuneiform script that describes in detail how to get rid of an ancient unwanted ghost. It was Dr. Irving Finkle, the curator of the Middle Eastern department at the British Museum, who made this startling discovery. An authority on cuneiform script, Dr. Finkle said the tablet had been incorrectly deciphered. The incorrect translation, coupled with the very faint outlines of the ghost image figure that are discernible only when seen from above and under a light, resulted in the tablet being forgotten. So it's so worn away and eroded that you have to catch it at an angle to really see the person's image that's on it now. Something that's really gone through a lot of erosion. You probably never give it a second thought because the area where the drawings are looks like it's got no writing. But when you examine it and hold it under a lamp, those figures leap out at you across time in the most startling way. It's a Genesis Book of Records object, because how could anybody have drawn of a ghost which was older than this? Dr. Finkle told The Guardian. The Loco-Sybillic script, used to write several languages of the ancient Middle East, is now known as cuneiform on account of its mostly wedge-shaped or cone-shaped symbols. It was in use from the early Bronze Age to the end of the BC period and is among the earliest writing systems of the world. Arab News reports that the image on the tablet shows a bearded man being led to the afterlife by a woman, and his tied hands held out before him. It's obviously a male ghost, and he's miserable. You can imagine a tall, thin, bearded ghost hanging about the house. Did get on people's nerves. The final analysis was that this ghost needed a lover, Dr. Finkle said in Times of Israel article. Here's a depiction of a ancient Sumerian cylinder seal. From the older times of it, you can tell from the depictions and the way the faces look and so on. It's at the British Museum too. It's of the god Demuzzi, being flanked by snakes on either side. He's being tortured in the underworld by ghost demons. It's one of the earliest depictions of ghosts in the underworld. Well, if you're to believe that they're ghosts or something different or like that, or if you go with demons, but these are the rulers of the underworld versus the rulers of the upper world, or the rulers in heaven. We have the same concept today. In fact, you can actually see in the far right here a man standing on what's probably a lion, but he has that trident pitchfork, which does go with pitchforks. But a pitchfork can be quite the hell of a weapon. In fact, you wouldn't believe how ancient weapons came from things that were actually utilized for farming in the first place. When we talk about Demuzzi, but what we're seeing here is actually a ghost too, and this probably predates the one that we're talking about. And this is Demuzzi, who is dead and in the afterlife of the underworld. And that story we've talked about before with Inanna. And now so she goes through a trial, has to take off all of her clothes, and she gets hung on a meat hook, does these things. And through Inky, she is reborn and comes back. And this is the rites of spring. When she's away, everything starts to decay off in the underworld, but when she comes back, everything flowers. This is also have to be a ghost, an undead, some form. Since we're at the Halloween times, might as well show this. Exorcising a ghost. Half the tablet, which is an exorcist's guide to getting rid of unwanted ghosts by fulfilling the longing that makes them hang around in the world of the living, that it's missing. Despite that, the instructions for dispatching a ghost who seizes a hold of a person and pursues him and cannot be loosed seems to have survived in fascinating detail. So this is a haunting. And one would have to believe that even back in caveman times and whatever, if you will, if someone died that was real close to you, you could lose it mentally somewhat and keep seeing them mentally and being haunted by them. But that's not the first depiction here of them. Because, Irv ain't afraid of no ghost. Well, it's funny they mentioned exorcisms right there, because in the Exorcist movie itself, it shows another Sumerian realism that they actually had demons and so on. In fact, that winged demon with a weird scary face that you see is Pazuzu. And they act like it's a bad demon and it causes all these things and so on, but actually Pazuzu in Sumerian now, they realize, is the demon who is there to cast away all of the other bad demons. So this would be an angel, if you will, that you were calling on and you were putting it out there. But it has to look fierce, so you have this depiction. And women would use this in childbirth and so on to make sure some demon on the wind didn't try to get her sick or do things like that that would lead to her getting sick or losing her child and so on. And in fact, once they had the child, these same type of things went on. So there was a lot of beliefs back then, but we still have beliefs that go along with that. I mean, there are still priests going around doing exorcisms, but that's all but lost, isn't it? The cuneiform script instructions describe how to make the figurines of a man and a woman, and dressing the man in everyday clothing like Demuzzi, while the woman is to be wrapped in 4 red garments and clothed in purple, like Inanna. He doesn't mention this, but I would guarantee that this is what the connective is. you're supposed to mimic what they did. She should also be wearing a golden brooch. The man is to be provided with travel provisions, while the woman should be given a bed, a chair, a mat, a towel, a comb, and a flask. So she has all of her accoutrements and things that go with a home. The ritual is to take place at sunrise, and after equipping the figurines as instructed, a curtain is to be drawn, and 2 carnelian jugs of beer and an incense burner holding juniper branches are to be placed next to the figurines. Then Shamash, the Babylonian god of the sun and judge of the underworld by night, is invoked with incantations. And you also probably call upon the moon and the stars and the other gods, which are effectively wandering stars in our sky at night too, with astrotheology. After detailing the ritual for getting rid of the unwanted visitation, the text at the back of the tablet ends with the warning, "Do not look behind you." According to Dr. Finkle, the tablet formed part of a library in an exorcist's house or a temple. He writes about the ghosts in his book, The First Ghosts, Most Ancient of Legacies. He hopes to exhibit the ghost history rewriting Babylonian tablet to the public, noting that such an artifact served to show that all the weaknesses and fears of the human race in the present were there in abundance over 3,500 years ago. I want people to know about this culture. Egypt always wins in Hollywood. If Babylonian underworld is anything like it was described, then they're all still there. So just remember that, he said. Whether that is so or not, the discovery of the ghost image, the oldest found so far in the world, is sure to captivate public interest. So, yeah, they ought to put a Halloween exhibit up in the British Museum there and show it off a little bit there. But again, to give you an idea here, what they were supposed to do with this was they were supposed to mimic, apparently, a ritual of Inanna and Demuzzi, and in that fact, he would find his wife. So apparently the prognosis for the reason that this person still had a ghost existing in this house that was tormenting him or haunting him was that he was not with his wife. So you were to symbolically make that situation so he had the correct burial and things went through it, and then apparently he would walk into the light like Carol Ann and Poltergeist, right? And then he would be connected and no longer causing problems against the living. So let me know what you think down below, but this shows you that some of our beliefs come from people's beliefs from way, way back. I've shown a lot of, well, every year I try to do one or more Halloween videos showing you where a werewolf comes from, vampires, of course the mummy we all know about, but also connections to like werewolves, or people don't understand why does the moon go with the werewolf. Well, the moon's sacred geometry is 108. Silver is 108 on your atomic clock. It all goes together. Somehow they knew these things and how they worked, and things that were the bane of another, and so on. And this is the ancient magic that helped to make things like this go away. Ooh. Peace.